Let's continue our discussion of epithelial tissues and talk about some of these cell connections that bind them together. Now, these cell connections are going to be proteins. Proteins are very good at binding and holding cells together and performing other functions at the same time, like communication. So you won't see them on the free surface, but you will see them at the lateral surfaces, which are in between the cells holding them together. You bind these epithelial cells together tightly, they're going to make a good barrier. You'll also see them at the basal surface, holding them to whatever's beneath them like a basement membrane. So looking at functions, they form a very good, strong, tight layer. Not much of anything will fit in between these cells, and cells are always picky about what goes through them. In addition to that, you can also see them being used for intercellular communication. When they do this, like the gap junctions down here at the bottom, there'll be ion channels. Ion channels can bind cells together and also work for communication. You'll see that a whole lot more when you get to things like how cardiac and smooth muscle works together. But look at these different types: desmosomes, tight junctions, and gap junctions. Going back to the desmosomes, you'll find these in areas subjected to stress. You got stress, you need something very strong to hold the cells together. So they tell you they work like an adhesive. Everybody knows an adhesive is like a glue. Bind them and hold them together, they make a good tight barrier. These desmosomes also have little protein filaments coming off of them that look like tree roots that grow into the cytoplasm of the cell. Everybody knows that tree roots are good for binding and holding things in place. That's exactly what they're doing. So you'll see a lot of these in the outer layer of the skin. Then you have these hemidesmosomes. Hemi's half, so these are exactly half of the ones you see before. These will be down at that bottom basal layer, holding the cells to the basement membrane. You also have these tight junctions. Again, like the others, they're binding the cells together tightly. And within these tight junctions, you'll see two different pieces: the zonula adherens, which acts like a weak glue, and then the occludens, which binds and holds it together, sort of like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Gap junctions down here at the bottom, again, are protein channels. These are good for communication because, again, they allow ions to pass. When you allow ions to pass from one cell to the next, you're going to pass electric signals. And remember, cells communicate using electric and chemical signals. So when you get to gap junctions and see cardiac muscle and smooth muscle, you'll see that these gap junctions actually have different names, but they're still pretty much really all the same thing, passing ions from one cell to the next, letting them communicate with each other. You'll also see these being associated with the movement of cilia. Looking at glands, notice how there's two major types of glands: endocrine and exocrine. Now, endocrine glands are all about hormones. That's where the endocrine system name comes from. These glands here don't have ducts. They'll secrete their chemical signals that we call hormones into the interstitial spaces. That'll make its way into the blood, and by definition, a hormone is a chemical signal that travels through the blood to its target tissue. Now, exocrine glands are very different. They don't release some type of material into the blood. They have ducts. A duct is like a tube that goes to the surface of something, whether it's the surface of your skin, surface of your stomach, or many other places. And you can categorize these exocrine glands in a few different ways, either by their structure or how they're secreting materials. So when you look at their structure, there might be unicellular or multicellular. When you look at these classified on the ducts, well, they might be simple, which means they just have a few branches, or they might be compound, which is where they have many. So not much is different about their structure there. And then looking at these classified by secretion type, look at how they release their material and where you would find an example of each. Now, with the simplest, the merocrine, they are going to release material out of the cell by exocytosis, maybe even active transport. So what you're going to see are tiny little vesicles, little packages of materials leaving the cell. Sweat glands work in that way. Then there's the apocrine glands. Here's where a piece of the gland actually pinches off. So part of the cell will separate with the contents inside of it. Mammary glands work that way. And then with the holocrine gland, this is where the entire cell falls away. And then, of course, a new cell comes right up behind it and replaces it. And the oil-producing sebaceous glands work in this way here.